There's something almost rebellious about the idea of bringing the SW20 MR2 back in 2027. Not because Toyota has officially announced a new MR2, it hasn't, but because the second-generation car already had one ingredient that modern sports cars desperately chase: a mid-engine layout in a relatively compact, driver-focused package. And if you take that legendary silhouette, sharpen it with modern design, and imagine it as a heavily modified 2027 machine, suddenly the old MR2 starts looking like it never really left. The car you're looking at is best understood as a modified or custom interpretation of a 2027 Toyota MR2 SW20, not an officially confirmed Toyota production model. Toyota's current 2027 lineup does not list a new MR2. But the inspiration behind this idea is very real. The SW20 was Toyota's second-generation MR2, produced from the late 980 seconds through the 1990 seconds, and Toyota itself describes the MR2 as a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive sports car that became one of the company's most memorable performance machines. And honestly, just look at this thing. The front end keeps the low, wedge-like attitude that made the SW20 so recognizable, but the modified treatment pushes it into a much more aggressive era. The nose sits close to the ground. The front bumper looks sculpted around airflow rather than decoration, and the headlights give the car a sharper, more focused expression. The hood stays relatively clean because the magic of the MR2 has never been about covering every surface with unnecessary drama. Move around to the side, and this is where the proportions start telling the real story. That short, compact body, low roofline, tight overhangs, and cabin pushed forward create the classic mid-engine visual balance. The wheels fill the arches more aggressively than the original car ever did, while the wider stance makes the whole vehicle look planted before it even moves. And that's important, because the SW20 wasn't famous simply because it looked exotic. Its mid-engine, rear-wheel drive architecture was the reason the car could deliver such an unusual driving experience for its class. The weight is concentrated much closer to the center of the car, which helps explain why an MR2 can feel so immediate when you turn into a corner. Toyota has even highlighted that mid-engine layout as a defining part of the MR2's character. You don't just point the car into a bend. The car feels eager to rotate around you. Now here's where the modified 2027 interpretation gets really interesting. Instead of trying to make the SW20 look like another oversized modern supercar, the design works because it respects the original proportions. The side intakes remain visually important. The greenhouse stays compact, and the rear haunches emphasize where the powertrain would sit. That gives the car something many modern sports cars have lost: visual lightness. Even standing still, it looks like a car that wants to change direction. At the rear, the design becomes more dramatic. A wider bumper, deeper diffuser treatment, muscular engine cover, and a performance-focused spoiler give the SW20 a much more serious road presence. The taillights are modernized without completely abandoning the identity of the original. And that balance is crucial. If you change too much, it stops being an MR2. Change too little, and it becomes nothing more than a restoration. This interpretation sits somewhere in the middle. Step inside, and the same philosophy continues. The cockpit is compact, driver-oriented, and deliberately focused on the road ahead. You'd expect a modern interpretation to bring in a digital instrument display, updated infotainment, better materials, and modern connectivity. But those details should support the driving experience rather than bury it beneath screens. And that brings us to the biggest question: what would actually power something like this? The honest answer is that there are no official 27 MR2 engine specifications to quote. Toyota has not confirmed production horsepower, torque, acceleration, transmission, top speed, or pricing for an SW20 revival. So any exact numbers you see attached to a fictional 2027 MR2 should be treated as speculation, but the mechanical philosophy is easier to imagine. A future MR2 would need to preserve the thing that made the original special: compact dimensions, low weight, rear-wheel drive, and that unmistakable mid-engine balance. The challenge would be delivering modern performance without turning the car into something heavy and disconnected. Because that's the trap. Give it too much power, and you risk overwhelming the lightweight characters. Add too much technology and weight, and you lose the very reason people wanted an MR2 in the first place. The original SW20 became beloved because it offered something unusual. Toyota had created a mid-engine production sports car without pushing it into exotic car territory. That combination of accessibility, handling, and personality is a huge part of why the MR2 still has such a loyal following decades later. And maybe that's why this imagined 2027 version feels so convincing. It doesn't need to be the fastest sports car on the road. It just needs to make you want to take the long way home. Imagine dropping into that low driver's seat, seeing the front fenders stretching ahead of you, feeling the steering load up through a tight corner, and hearing the engine working behind the cabin. That's the experience this design is really selling. Not numbers, not status ganch. And when you look back at the SW20 today, that might be its greatest achievement. Toyota built a car that made mid-engine performance feel attainable, and decades later, enthusiasts are still modifying, racing, restoring, and dreaming about what the next MR2 could become. So, could a real 2027 Toyota MR2 SW20 return exactly like this? Right now, no, this is a modified sports car concept rather than an officially revealed Toyota production vehicle. But as a vision of what a modern SW20-inspired MR2 could look like, it captures something incredibly important. The original MR2 didn't need to pretend to be a Ferrari. It became special by being an MR2. And if Toyota ever brings that name back, the smartest move might be to remember exactly why people fell in love with it in the first place. If you'd bring the MR2 back, would you keep it lightweight and naturally focused? Or turn it into a serious modern performance machine? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more legendary cars reimagined for the future, stay with CrashIQ.